Oh, welcome to the channel. In this video today, we're going over the Stamina Nightblade build for the Ascending Tide patch. So, maximum health is 19.7k, maximum stamina is 33.1, stamina recovery is 1.4, almost 1.5, weapon damage is 4.5, almost 4.6, weapon critical is 57.7, and physical penetration is 5.4. Now, I'm buffed up. Um, Let's go ahead and throw this down. Pop pot. Alright, that'll proc. Our weapon damage is 6k, and our stam recovery is 1.8. So that is around where we are self-buffed. So I have 64 points into stamina, and keep in mind, I'm an orc. So if you are a different race, your points may look a little different, but this is what mine looks like. If you're just not necessarily interested in in-game score pushing, then you can really be any race you want. But if you're interested in in-game, Dark Elf, Orc, and Khajiit are your top three. You can go with any of those and still be all right. But honestly, you could be any race you want and still pull solid numbers. The food I'm running is the Lava Foot Soup and Saltries. Gives me an increased max stamina by 4.5k and stamina recovery 451. Now, if you feel like you need a little more max health, or you just need more max health in general, you have options when it comes to food, and those, if you feel like you need some, just a little bit, you can get some stamina recovery with Dubious Cameron Throne with 311. Max stamina will give you 2.8k, and maximum health is 3k. Now, your stamina will go down, but you'll go up in max health. Now, if you're in a group where you're getting orbs, you're getting shards, you're having synergies, you're having no problem sustaining, you can always drop this in general and go for the Braised Rabbit with Spring Vegetables. You'll get 5.3k max health and 4.9k max stamina. So you can really go with any of those and you will be okay. Now, the boon I'm running is the Thief. Just gives me more weapon and spell critical. So now, champion points in the green tree when it comes to passives. Fortune Favors, Gilded Fingers. It's just nice for extra gold when I'm out doing stuff. Gilded Finger gives me an extra 10% gold from everything. And Fortune Favors gives me an extra 50% gold from chests and safe boxes. Now, Steadfast Enchantment is another really good one to have. It basically, when your weapon charges proc, like your weapon damage enchant, this has a 50% chance to not consume it. So, now for ones I keep on my bar, always, Treasure Hunter is one I keep. Increased quality of items you find in treasure chests. Now, this works on all treasure chests, but in dolmens, I'm just going off of dolmens, you have a better chance of getting that purple necklace or that purple ring with this. But if you are in a dungeon and you pop a treasure chest, if you are on normal, it's not going to give you a better chance of getting that purple. So if you're on a normal dungeon, you're still going to get blue. But what it's going to do is it's going to give you a better chance to get additional set pieces from that chest in general. So if you're normal, you're still going to get blue jewelry. If you're on vet, you will get purple. Liquid efficiency. Whenever you use a potion or poison, you have a 10% chance to not consume it. I don't really use poisons in this setup, but sometimes I do use my weapon power pots. So that extra 10% just saves me some gold. So it's worth having on my bar. Now, I keep Master Gatherer and Plentiful Harvest in my bar unless I'm score pushing or doing something where I'm trying to get an achievement or something like that. But for the most part, if I'm waiting on queues or waiting on trial teams to form, Master Gatherer basically allows me to get nodes at 50% faster, and Plentiful Harvest gives me a 50% chance to get double resources from those nodes. That's usually what I'm doing, is just running around Craglorn or Drashan or somewhere and just picking up nodes while I'm waiting on stuff to form. Now, when I'm doing the more serious runs, I keep Seed's Blessing on my bar, which gives me an extra 20% movement speed out of combat, and Rationer, which gives me an extra 30 minutes on my buffs, drink buffs. So, in the red tree, for the passives, Defiance, Tumbling. Hero's Vigor is a really solid one to have. It gives you an extra 560 max health. Sprinter, reduce. And then Hasty, Tireless Guardian, Savage Defense, Bash and Brutality. I do like to go with these two a lot on stam characters because usually you're up close and personal with the boss. So therefore, if there's a bash that needs to happen, you can get that bash before anyone else. So this will reduce the cost to bash, and this will make that bash do a little more damage. And then of course fortification, and then in here we have nimble protector, increases your movement speed while you're blocking. Now for the ones I keep on my bar, bloody renewal gives me an extra 1500 stamina when I land the killing blow on an enemy. Balanced vitality gives me an extra 1400 max health. Fortified gives me an extra 1.7k armor. Rejuvenation gives me an extra 90 health, magic, and stam recovery. Now, if you have the extra points, there is one that I like to have. It's passive. You can go either way. It takes 10 to go across. Is Temperate Soul, which gives me an extra 10% more resources when I get res. So if for whatever reason I'm not paying attention and I get dropped in a fight, when I get resed, I'll have resources instead of like having to throw a couple heavy attacks, hoping I have potions at the time, or hoping I get some kind of shard or orbs. At least this way I have resources to restart my rotation and hopefully keep it going. So now in the blue tree, I don't know what that was. Precision gives me an extra critical chance. Tireless Discipline gives me more max stamina. And then Piercing, Battle Mastery, and Mighty. So, now, once I keep on my bar, I keep fighting Finesse and on my bar at all times, which gives me an extra 10% critical damage and critical healing done. Now, I also keep Thermometer, increases your damage done with damage over time effects by 10%. Deadly Aim increases your damage done with single target attacks by 10%. And then I have Biting Aura, which increases the damage of your area effect attacks by 10%. Now, you can also go with Master at Arm, increase your damage done with direct damage attacks by 10%. And one that I do like to use if I'm running with a tank that I know personally, is Backstabber. I'll run Backstabber in dungeons and stuff like that, and basically it gives me an extra 15% critical damage when I'm flanking the enemy. Now, if I cannot flank the enemy, there is no point in this. So if I don't have a tank in the group so the mob can just kind of run around, or if my tank has happy feet and they're just running circles and just moving around for whatever reason and I can't stay behind the enemy, then I'm not really getting anything out of this. It's not worth it. So I usually keep Biting Aura. So if I'm running with a dedicated tank that I know can basically put the boss in a corner and stay there, they're not going to be running all over, I'll use Backstabber. But only if the tank is not dancing. So, but this is usually what I keep. Biting Aura, Deadly Aim, Thermometer, and Fighting Finesse. So, now, for the sets, first set, Plague Break. It's an absolute amazing set. The dot on it is just absolutely amazing. The damage at the end is absolutely amazing. I'm running it on the front bar only. I'm running a Nern Dagger with a Precise Dagger offhand. You could also go charged if you wanted to on the offhand. But I'm running a Poison Damage enchant and a Flame Damage enchant. And jewelry wise, I'm running Robust with Weapon Damage. If you want more DPS out of the set, or more DPS in general, you could go 1 infused, 2 bloodthirsty, 3 bloodthirsty, 2 infused, 1 bloodthirsty, whatever you want. It's up to you on what you feel like running. I would probably go 1 infused, 2 bloodthirsty. That's just me. So now, this set is a PvP set, so if you don't PvP and you don't get your rewards are the worthy, then you will have to get this from traders or guildmates. What it does, it gives you offensive penetration, weapon damage, and then dealing direct damage to an enemy who is not a plague carrier turns them into a plague carrier for 10 seconds, dealing 9.6k disease damage over the duration. If the plague is removed early, it explodes, inflicting enemies within 8 meters of the carrier and dealing 3.6k disease damage. Explosion deals an additional 50% damage per enemy hit. Effect can occur once per attack and scales off the higher of your weapon and spell damage. Now, this disease damage will go up because we are unbuffed right now. I usually see this setting around 11.3, 11.4 roughly. And that disease damage that explodes goes up too. I think it's normally around 4.5. So, now, this ending early, it's got 10 seconds. So if you kill an enemy within 10 seconds and they're carrying this, they will explode dealing that damage as well. So it really helps on those trash mobs because we are pretty single target focused. So it just helps us with AoE damage. Now, this set on Guild Traders alone it's the market on this is so crazy on PS4 NA. I have seen daggers at 1,000, and I have seen them all the way up to 55 plus. So shop around. All you gotta do is find one dagger, and then you can pretty much reconstruct it to whatever you want. But shop around. Jewelry, I have seen it at 5K, and I have seen it all the way up to 35K. So again, just shop around, and you can definitely find this stuff cheaper. So now, back par, I'm running the Maelstrom bow, infused with a weapon damage enchant. Now, this comes from Maelstrom Arena Normal, and what it does is it increases the damage volley deals by 430 each tick. This bonus increases by 143 every time volley ticks, up to a maximum of 8 times. Now, the Greatsword, I would say, is probably better than the bow. But for me, I would have, using Stampede with Cleave are great, and they do a lot of damage. But for me, I only needed one ability on my back bar for with what I had on my setup. So volley is just better for me. But you can go the Greatsword and change out a few skills on the back if you wanted to. You would be absolutely fine. And I'll go over that when I get to the skills on how I would trade it out. But I just like this setup a little more. So now, for the monster set, I'm using Crags. This comes from Fungal Grotto 1. It is one of the easiest monster sets to get. It's in one of the beginner dungeons, and even on Vet, you can literally skip bosses. You can skip half the dungeon. So, we're running it Helmet, Shoulders, Light, Divines with max stamina. And what this does, gives us offensive penetration. When you deal damage, you have a 10% chance to spawn Dragon Limbs that create shockwaves in front of you, dealing 1.2k physical damage every 0.6 seconds for 2.4 seconds. That can occur once every 6 seconds and scales off your weapon or spell damage. Now, you don't even have to run a full monster set. You can run one piece Crag for the penetration, and just on the monster mask, and then get you a shoulder that gives max stamina or weapon damage or critical chance. Or you can run another offensive penetration set, like Valken Scoria is the other one. So you're absolutely fine. If you want to run another monster set over this one, you have Tempest Island. You have Stormfist from Tempest Island would definitely be the next one that I would use, because I like Stormfist. It gives stam recovery, and it deals shock damage and physical damage. It is a massive amount of damage just on this, and this is probably the one I would go with. And Tempest Island is another easy dungeon to get through. The only difficult part would be the final boss, and just hug it. When it does its AoE, back out, and then back in, and you will be absolutely fine. There is also Celine's Web. Gives max stamina, and when you deal damage with a martial melee damage, you call forth a primal spirit that mauls the closest enemy in front of you after 1.3 seconds for 8.8k physical damage. This effect can occur once every 6 seconds. But like I said, if you don't want to run a full monster set, I would run one piece Crag, and then you can run one piece Slime Crawl. Gives you critical chance. This is a monster set that gives you the most critical chance. Or if you don't feel like you need the critical chance, you can always go with a set that will give you extra weapon or spell damage with, like one of the good ones is Malakina here. It gives you an extra weapon and spell damage. So, but there you go. Also, I believe, yeah, Nalnir's Nightmare gives you extra weapon and spell damage as well. So, but that's just me. Now, the second 5-piece set that we're rocking is Venomous Smite. We're running it all in the body, all divines, all max stamina. And what this does, it gives us critical chance, weapon and spell damage. And when we deal critical damage, it inflicts Hunter Venom on your enemy for 10 seconds, dealing 4k poison damage to your target and enemy within 6 meters of them every 2 seconds. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds and scales off the higher of your weapon or spell damage. Now, this is another very cheap set to get. You can find these in Divines. I have seen Divine pieces just yesterday on PS4 NA for 500 gold, and I've seen them all the way up to 10k and everywhere in between. So this is another very cheap set. If I remember correctly, if you just want to farm this set, it is a DLC zone, and it comes from Western Skyrim. So you can just go in there and you can farm this up. Very easy set to get. And can mix and match these. You can honestly, you can run Venom on your front bar. You can run Plague Breaker on the body. If you can find cheaper pieces, like if you find Venom daggers for cheaper than Plague Breaker daggers, you can always go with that. Mix and match however you want. But both these sets, prices can vary. Venomous is a pretty cheap set because it doesn't get used a whole lot, but it does deal AoE damage as well with Plague Breaker. Makes clearing trash mobs super easy, and when it comes to the DPS in general that we put out, it's very good. So now skills. I was using trash pots when I tested for this, so I was running Shrouded Daggers because I wanted. Shrouded Daggers is the only set skill that is single target that gives us major brutality, so that's why I was running it. But what this does is it fires a secret dagger from your sleeve that bounces up 3 times to nearby enemies, dealing 7.1k physical damage per hit. If enemies hit or casting, they are interrupted, set off balance, and stunned for 3 seconds. You also gain major brutality and source increasing your weapon and spell damage by 20% for 20 seconds. So if you don't have weapon power pots, or you don't feel like using weapon power pots, because there are times in normal dungeons where I just don't want to use weapon power pots because it's just not worth wasting those on those dungeons, so I will switch to Shrouded Daggers. If I am using weapon power pots, I will switch Shrouded Daggers to Surprise Attack. Surprise Attack deals 9.3k physical damage, implying the Sunder status effect. Attacking with Surprise Attack from the flank stuns the enemy for 3 seconds and sets them off balance. So you could either go, I would go with Surprise Attack, but you could also use Rapid Strikes if you wanted to. But Surprise Attack is definitely the better spammable. But like I said, use whichever one you like more. If you are using weapon power pots, then you're getting everything from Shrouded Daggers. So why not use the better spammable and Surprise Attack? But Surprise Attack and Rapid Strikes are both better than Hidden Blade or Shrouded Daggers. So that's just for me. Then we have Rending Slashes. Slash an enemy with both weapons to cause deep lacerations, dealing 2.9k bleed damage with each weapon and causing them to bleed for an additional 10.2k bleed damage over 10 seconds. Then we have Relentless Focus. Focus your senses for 1 minute, increasing your weapon and spell damage by 600 with every light or heavy attack up to 5 times. While active, hitting an enemy with a light or heavy attack converts this ability into Assassin's Scourge, allowing you to fire a spectral bow for half cost that deals 17.4k disease damage and heals for 33% of the damage dealt if you are within melee range. So this is, this is one of our better abilities. Also, as you can see, our damage will go up. So we got our stacks, we have our Scourge. So our weapon damage is 4.8. So if we just go, wrong button. So if we just go ahead and get our weapon enchant procced, with everything we're at 5.3. Let's go ahead and throw out Shrouded Daggers, 6.3. So we go over 6k as well. So this is kind of where we are above. I know earlier it was like 6, but honestly, I forget about the extra weapon damage from the Relentless. So, but in dungeons and stuff like that, normally I am setting around 6.8 to 7k, sometimes a little more. It just depends on what sets the rest of the group is running. Also, something to note with Relentless Focus, I love to fire this bow off right after the Incapacitating Strike. So, Killer's Blade, thrust a Caustic Blade with lethal precision to stab an enemy, dealing 4.8k disease damage and deals 300% more damage to enemies below 25% health. Heals you for 4k if the enemy dies within 2 seconds of being struck. This portion of ability scales off your max health. Now, I know it says 25% health and you can really use it after that, but honestly, it really just depends on their max HP. I usually don't start spamming this until they're around 500k. But honestly, it depends on the boss. Because 25k or 25% is different on a boss that has, 50 million HP over a boss that has 2.3 million or 10 million. It really just depends on the enemy, so always use your judgment call. Sometimes it is best at that 25% just to keep your rotation going because there's so much health left. You don't want to drop your dots and just start spamming your execute because, your execute will be doing more damage than, say, your spammable, but you're losing a lot of DPS by not keeping the dots up. So always, when it comes to your abilities, and the execute, when it is time, just make judgment call, more or less. Camouflage Hunter, it's here for the extra weapon damage from the fire skill passive. Plus, while slotted, you gain major savagery and props to increase your weapon and spell critical rating by 2.6. You also gain minor berserk for 5 seconds after dealing critical damage from an enemy's flank. And then ultimate, incapacitating strike, ravage an enemy with a swift strike, dealing 15.5k disease damage, causing them to take 20% more damage from your attacks for 6 seconds. Cast with 120 or more ultimate, the enemy is stunned for 3 seconds. While slotted, you gain Reeve, which restores 100 magicka and stamina when you deal damage with a light or heavy attack on an enemy with a negative effect on them. So this is why I like to fire this bow after my ultimate, because that extra 20%, that bow's going to hit hella hard. So, back par, arrow barrage. This is why we're using the bow, is for the arrow barrage. Launch a multitude of arrows into the sky to rain down, dealing 2k physical damage to enemies in the target area every 1 second for 8 seconds after a 2-second delay. So, with Maelstrom bow, that volley, or that barrage, will deal more damage as it ticks. So, and then we have Dark Shade. Summon a shaded version of yourself to attack an enemy and fight at your side for 20 seconds. Shade slashes an enemy, dealing 3.1k magic damage, and occasionally with whirlwinds, all enemies around like dealing 3.1k magic damage once every 2 seconds. The Shade's attacks inflicts minor maim, reducing enemy's damage done by 5% for 4 seconds. Leeching strikes. Imbue your weapons with soul stealing power, causing your light and heavy attacks to heal you for 1.5k health and restore 106 stamina for 20 seconds. Fully charged heavy attacks restore twice the value. You restore up to 4.2k additional stamina when the effect ends, based on the length of time Leeching Strikes was active. Now, this is one of those abilities where you really want that 20 seconds to go off, unless you just need that little bit more stamina to finish the fight. Then you can cast this a second time for that extra stamina. But you're really not going to get much out of it. So unless it's like you got 4 or 5 seconds left, but at that point you might as well just wait for it to finish. So, Barbed Trap. When triggered, the trap deals 4.4k bleed damage and additional 17.6k bleed damage over 18 seconds. Grants you minor force, increasing your critical damage by 10% for the duration. So this is how we get our minor force, and it's also an amazing dot. So it's worth having. Then we have Camo Hunter on our back bar again. It's just here for the extra fire skill passive and the critical. So, and then again, Incapacitating Strike. I just double bar it because it gives me more crit on both bars. So, but if you wanted to on your back bar, you could always put Dawnbreaker if you wanted to. I don't have it learned, but you could definitely always just go down here to Fire Skill and use Dawnbreaker. I would go Flawless, but that's just me. But you could put it on your front bar if you want to, but when it comes to rotation, I find it easier to have end cap on your front bar over your back bar. So I just keep it double barred. Now, if you're using the Greatsword, the Maelstrom Greatsword, over the bow, now you're going to want to use, you're going to use Critical Charge for Stampede, and then you'll also have Cleave. Unfortunately, I didn't level up Critical Charge. I don't know why. I think it stopped leveling up. I think that's what it was. It got stuck and just wouldn't level up anymore. So everything else leveled up, but it did not. You're going to use Critical Charge. You're going to morph it to Stampede, and then on top of that, you're going to want to use Cleave, and you're going to want to take it to Carve. That bleed damage that implies is absolutely amazing. But if you feel like you need a shield, you can go with Brawlers, but you're going to get more out of Carve than you would Brawlers. So what I would do is that, of course, I would still want to run your Dark Shade, so of course Stampede would be replaced by Arrow Barrage here. You put Cleave on your bar, and then just drop Camouflage Hunter for the Shade, if you want to do that. I try to keep it as simple as possible with the setup and the rotation. This is just kind of the more simpler one for me that I thought, and you'll still deal amazing damage. But if you want to use the Greatsword, Stampede, Cleave, drop Camo Hunter for Dark Shades, and then if you do it, you're going to have a lot of abilities to refresh on your bar. So it just, without looking everything, it's going to be hard to explain. But with this setup, Arrow Barrage lasts for 10 seconds. This lasts for 20 seconds. This lasts for 20 seconds. This is 20 seconds. So basically, starting out, you're going to buff up, and then you're going to use Arrow Barrage. And then after 10 seconds, You're going to rotate back. You're going to use arrow barrage. You're going to switch back. So every 2 rotations you'll come through and you'll use all of these abilities, and then you'll bar swap and keep going again. So this lasts 10 seconds too, so it's just easier to remember. As this gets down to about 2 seconds, you'll want to bar swap to reapply arrow barrage and keep it going. So DPS wise with this setup, 42.7k. This is self buff on a 3 mil, so I'm not doing it on an Iron Atro. So I'm not getting all of those buffs from the rest of the group from trials, because, you know, these builds are more set up for people that don't do trials or just want to play casually. So 42.7k is absolutely great. Plus, on top of that, that is just single target damage. We also have the AoE damage from Plaguebreaker and the AoE damage from Venomous Smite. So we'll be able to burn ads down a whole lot faster. And on top of that, we have pretty good single target. So when it comes to DPS wise, for trash pots, you know, you're going to want to buff up. So you would do your shade, your siphoning attacks. Alright, so you would do that. Now, what I like to do, trap, pot, arrow barrage, bar swap, rending slashes, end cap, and you will light attack in between each. So at this point, you should have a bow. So you would fire off the spectral bow, and then just start throwing shrouded daggers. You should be able to get about 3 off, and then you'll have to just arrow barrage. You'll bar swap over, rending slashes again. At this point, you should have another bow. So you would just, and then throw out a couple more. You'll see rending slashes hit about 2 seconds. Bar swap, arrow barrage, shade, siphoning, trap, that. Use this. When you have it, fire off bow. And you just keep it going. You will have no rotation. Is very simple. It's very easy. Just that's all it is to it. So every 10 seconds, you know, you'll have to do the arrow barrage. Every 2 rotations, you'll have to do all 4 abilities on your back bar, and then you just come back through. Just keep it lined up with arrow barrage, and you won't have any trouble at all. Use your potions when you have them. So you get away with trash pots because we have shrouded daggers giving us major brutality. But like I said, if you are not using, if you have weapon power pots to use, ditch the weapon power pots. If you have the weapon power pots, ditch shrouded daggers for surprise attack. As soon as that goes away, I can swap out. There we go. So if you have weapon power pots and you're using these, it's the same thing, but instead of using shrouded daggers, well, I forgot to put down these, you would use balance, and look at that, 17.7k on those. So it's not a problem at all. And then when it comes to execute range, you know, you'll execute, go through arrow barrage, make sure your trap beast down. I like to come to shade. Now I'm at 20k or 20%. This is when I start execute. So I'll hit rending slashes, fire off a bow, and just start spamming my execute. I don't really refresh anything anymore, and I just keep it going. And that'll be it. So, and of course, I do pop my pots when it comes through. But, see, the rotation is really easy. It's really simple. So, before you go in, you buff up. Trap beast, pot, barrage. Rotate, rending slashes, ultimate, bow, and then spammable. That's it. And you just repeat the process. Really easy. 4 buttons. Then plus 3 on your front bar for the most part. Not count the ultimates. 7 out of the 10. Pretty easy. And then when you get an execute range, you'll pretty much just drop to the 1. So it's very simple rotation. Very easy to do. No problem at all. Now, when you DPS test on a 3 mil and stuff like that, it does get a little more complicated. Because you're going to want major breach, and the best way to do that, you know, is to get that on your own. So we have piercing mark, which lasts for 27 seconds. As you level this up, this will last longer, but I do it every 3 rotations. So basically, on the rotation where I would just fire off arrow barrage, I would do piercing mark and then just rotate, and then you're set. You come back, you'll do these 4, go through, keep going, arrow barrage, piercing mark, do your stuff. Bar swap, arrow barrage, these 3. And then just like that. So, but yeah. This video, let me know how y'all are enjoying sitting time. Let me know if y'all had fun with the Jubilee event. And until next time, take care.